Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of the Everyday English series from Everyday English Flow. These podcasts are designed to help you improve your English through natural conversations on interesting topics. By listening regularly, you'll improve your listening skills, expand your vocabulary, learn useful everyday expressions, and become more comfortable understanding natural English. For the best results, try to listen to one episode every day. The more you listen, the more naturally you'll understand and use English. So put on your headphones and let's get started.
Picture this. You're at a networking event, or maybe, I don't know, a dinner party with some new colleagues.
Oh, yeah. The classic high-pressure social situation.
Right, exactly. So you are holding this lukewarm cup of coffee, making polite small talk, and then someone turns to you and asks, so tell me a bit about yourself. What kind of person are you?
The dreaded question.
It really is.
Yeah.
Suddenly, it is as if your brain just completely unplugs from the wall. You just freeze. Have you ever struggled to express exactly who you are in English?
I mean, it happens to everyone.
Yeah. Why is putting our own personality into words sometimes the hardest thing to do, even though, we know ourselves better than anyone else? It is this bizarre paradox. You live inside your own head 24 hours a day.
Right. You are the world's leading expert on yourself.
Exactly. You know all your own quirks, your habits, your fears, your strengths. But the moment you have to articulate that identity to a stranger, your mind goes completely blank, and you end up muttering something generic like, oh, I'm a nice person. I like movies.
Yeah. It's painful to watch and to experience.
It is. Anyway, welcome to Everyday English Flow, where we have real conversations about different topics in English. I'm so excited for today's deep dive.
Me too. Because, well, it really is a universal struggle, and it is fascinating from a psychological standpoint. We are just so close to our own identities that trying to summarize them feels impossible.
Like you're too zoomed in.
Yeah, exactly. It is like trying to see the outside of a building while you are standing in the lobby. You just don't have the perspective, and that challenge is magnified incredibly when you are trying to do it in a second language.
Oh, for sure. The language barrier just adds a whole new level of panic.
It really does. You might have this rich, complex, beautifully nuanced understanding of your identity in your mother tongue. You know how to be witty, how to be self-deprecating, how to hint at your strengths without bragging.
Right, you have all the tools.
But then, when you switch to English, you suddenly feel like an artist who has been handed a box of only 3 crayons.
A box of 3 crayons. That is such a perfect way to put it.
Right, you end up relying on these flat, basic words like nice or friendly or good, which are perfectly fine for a beginner, but they completely fail to capture the true three-dimensional essence of who you actually are.
That is such a painful feeling, knowing that the person you were talking to is only seeing like a tiny fraction of your real personality because of a vocabulary barrier.
Exactly. It's frustrating.
But that is exactly what our mission is today. We are going to help you master C1 level English by learning how to describe personality naturally, fluently, and, expressively.
We are throwing away those 3 basic crayons.
Throwing them out.
Right.
We are giving you the full palette today. This deep dive is going to focus heavily on speaking and listening skills. We're going to give you the exact tools, the precise phrasing that native speakers use in real life to talk about who they are and how they interact with the world.
And I think it is worth noting why this matters so much. It is widely believed by linguists and psychologists alike that personality is the single most common underlying topic in everyday conversation.
Wait, really? The single most common?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Why? Because it is the very foundation of human connection. Every time you meet someone new, every time you start a new job, every time you try to resolve a conflict with a neighbor or even go on a first date, you are actively navigating personality.
Oh, I see. It's everywhere.
It is. Learning this specific emotional vocabulary does not just help you pass an English proficiency exam. It quite literally improves your friendships, your workplace communication, and your romantic relationships. It is the language of being truly understood by another human being.
Wow. Okay, so to make sure we don't get lost in the weeds of all this deep psychology, we're going to keep the structure of today's deep dive incredibly simple. We're going to break down your learning into specific numbers before we even start so you know exactly what is coming.
I love a good roadmap. What are the numbers?
All right, so today we are going to master exactly 6 natural sentence patterns. Then we are going to break down 8 advanced personality adjectives. And finally, we are going to conquer 2 common mistakes that constantly hold English learners back from sounding truly fluent.
So that is 6 patterns, 8 adjectives, and 2 mistakes.
That's the roadmap. 6, 8, 2.
That structure is going to serve as a fantastic anchor for you. If you can master those specific targeted elements, you will find a massive shift in your fluency. You won't be in your head translating directly from your native language word for word anymore.
Right, which is the ultimate goal.
Exactly. You will start thinking and speaking in natural, idiomatic English when it comes to human behavior.
Oh, and I should also tease that we have a very special bonus at the very end of this deep dive regarding the secret of first impressions.
Oh, that's a good one.
It is. I found this particular insight absolutely mind-blowing. It completely dismantled how I look at meeting new people, so you will definitely want to stick around for that.
Definitely.
But before we get to the advanced sentence structures, we need to lay a foundation. And I think the best place to start is with the most fundamental way it is believed humans categorize themselves socially.
Right. The absolute baseline.
Yeah. It is all about how we process the world and where we get our energy. I am talking about the famous introvert versus extrovert spectrum.
It is the perfect starting point, really. The concepts of introversion and extroversion, which were popularized by the psychologist Carl Jung over a century ago, they are the bedrock of so much of our social behavior.
Let's really explore what it means to be introverted versus extroverted.
Right.
Because there is a massive, incredibly common misconception here that we need to clear up immediately.
Oh, absolutely. A vast majority of people, when they hear the word introverted, automatically assume it is a synonym for shy.
Or like antisocial.
Yes, or antisocial. They picture a person hiding in the corner at a crowded party, terrified to speak to anyone, lacking social skills. But scientifically and linguistically, that is not what introversion means at all.
I have to admit, for a long time, I was totally one of those people.
Really?
Yeah. I used to think if you labeled yourself as introverted, it was just a polite way of saying you didn't really like other people. I thought it was a measure of how social you were.
It is a totally understandable misunderstanding because our culture often just conflates the two. But look, shyness is about fear. It is the fear of negative judgment from others.
Okay, so shyness equals fear.
Right. Introversion, however, is purely about energy management. Being introverted simply means that a person loses energy from high levels of social interaction.
So they could still be great at socializing.
Exactly. An introvert might actually love the party. They might be the most charismatic, funny, engaging person in the room. They might have brilliant, deep conversation.
But there's a cost.
Yes, a heavy cost. Eventually, their internal battery drains. The social interaction literally costs them energy. And after all that output, they absolutely need quiet time away from external stimuli to recover that energy.
And extroverts are just the opposite.
Extroverts operate with a completely different neurological mechanism. They actually gain energy, motivation, and momentum from being around people. For an extrovert, isolation is draining, and a bustling crowd is recharging.
Okay, let's unpack this with a metaphor because the mechanics of this are fascinating. We often hear the phone battery analogy, which is fine, but I want to look at it differently.
Okay, lay it on me.
I heard someone describe introverts and extroverts like different types of microphones.
Oh, I like where this is going. How does that work?
So imagine an introvert is a highly sensitive, studio-quality microphone. It is designed to pick up every single whisper, every nuance, every echo in a room.
Very precise.
Right, because it is so sensitive, if you put it in a noisy rock concert, it gets completely overwhelmed. The circuits overload. It processes way too much information.
That makes perfect sense. And the extrovert?
An extrovert, on the other hand, is like a dynamic stage microphone. It actually needs loud, energetic input to function at its best. If you put it in a quiet room, it doesn't pick up much at all. It requires that external energy to come alive.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. It perfectly captures the idea of sensory bandwidth.
Sensory bandwidth, I like that term.
Yeah, the introvert's microphone is picking up the music, the overlapping conversations, the lighting, the temperature of the room, the micro expressions on people's faces. It is processing all of that simultaneously.
It sounds exhausting.
It is. And that brings us to a fantastic, highly advanced C1 level vocabulary word that you absolutely need in your toolkit. Overstimulating.
Okay, let's break that down. Overstimulating.
When an environment or a situation is overstimulating, it means it provides vastly more sensory or emotional input than your brain can comfortably process.
But it's literally too much stimulation.
Exactly. The prefix over obviously means too much, and stimulating refers to anything that triggers your senses or your mind. So an overstimulating environment has too much noise, too much bright light, too much visual clutter, or just too many people demanding your attention at once.
It just overloads the system.
It literally overwhelms your central nervous system.
So to put that into a natural example sentence, you might say, modern life with constant notifications, crowded commutes, and busy schedules can feel very overstimulating.
That's a perfect sentence.
I think anyone living in a major city feels that in their bones. I mean, your phone is constantly buzzing in your pocket with emails, the traffic is deafening, billboards are flashing, and 3 different people are texting you for an immediate answer.
It never stops.
No, it doesn't. For an introvert, our highly sensitive microphone, that overstimulating environment, drains their energy reserves incredibly fast.
Exactly. And when that energy is drained, what do? They have to engage in our first critical phrasal verb of the day, recharge mentally.
Recharge mentally. We use this constantly in everyday English. How would you define it for a learner?
So recharge mentally means to rest and actively recover your emotional and cognitive energy after it has been completely depleted. Notice the word mentally here.
Right, because it's not physical.
Precisely. We aren't talking about physical exhaustion. You might not have moved from your desk all day, so your muscles aren't tired, but your brain is completely exhausted.
You're just mentally fried.
Exactly. In a sentence, you would say, after a long week of networking events, I need to stay home this weekend and read a book to recharge mentally.
It's an active choice, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is important to note that recharging mentally is an active process. It is not just falling asleep. It is finding a peaceful activity that restores your baseline, maybe, that is going for a solitary walk in the woods, painting, or just sitting in total silence with a cup of tea.
It is such a sophisticated way to express your needs. Saying, I need to recharge mentally, sounds infinitely more self-aware and mature than just whining, I am tired of people.
Oh, absolutely. It changes the whole tone.
But here's a question. Why does learning this specific terminology, words like overstimulating and recharging mentally, actually matter in the real world? Beyond just passing a language exam, how does this change our lives?
It matters immensely because lacking this vocabulary causes severe real-world relationship fractures.
Fractures, like people breaking up over this.
Yes. If you do not understand and cannot articulate these concepts, painful misunderstandings are guaranteed to happen. Let me paint a picture for you.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine an extrovert and an introvert are close friends, or perhaps they are dating. They go out on a Saturday for a full day of activities, a busy brunch, shopping in a crowded mall, and then a loud street festival.
That sounds like a long day.
It is. So by 7:00 p.m., the extrovert is having the time of their life. They are energized, their dynamic microphone is fully activated, and they are ready to hit a noisy restaurant for dinner.
And the introvert.
The introvert is entirely depleted. The day has been incredibly overstimulating. Their sensitive microphone is overloaded. They desperately need to recharge mentally. So the introvert suddenly goes very quiet. Their body language closes off, and they just say, I think I just want to go home.
Oh, wow. I have been in this exact scenario on both sides of it. It is an absolute minefield.
It is a minefield. Because the extrovert operates on a different energy system, they don't instinctively understand the concept of a depleted social battery.
So they take it the wrong way.
Completely. What do they think? They look at their quiet, withdrawn friend and incorrectly assume, my friend is suddenly acting cold. They must be angry with me. Did I say something offensive at the festival? Are they not enjoying my company?
The extrovert makes it about themselves.
Yes. The extrovert takes the behavior personally. They feel rejected. Meanwhile, the introverted friend is not upset in the slightest. They love the extrovert. They had a wonderful day. They simply have zero mental energy left to form sentences.
But they don't know how to say that.
Exactly. Because they lack the vocabulary to explain this, a massive argument brews.
It is a tragedy of miscommunication. But if the introvert had the language tools, the whole narrative changes.
Precisely. If that introverted friend could simply articulate, I have had an amazing time with you today, but this environment is getting a bit overstimulating for me. My social battery is empty, and I need to head home to recharge mentally. The entire conflict evaporates.
Like magic.
It really is. The extrovert understands it is a biological need, not a personal rejection.
That is the magic of C1 level English. Just having the right precise words can literally save a friendship from unnecessary drama and resentment. It provides clarity where there used to be confusion.
Absolutely.
So now that we deeply understand this internal energy battery and the mechanics of introversion and extroversion, how do we actually start talking about these traits to other people? How do we introduce our personality into a conversation?
That brings us perfectly to our practical sentence patterns. Remember, we have 6 of these to master today.
Right, the 6 blueprints.
Yes, these are the structural blueprints that native speakers rely on. Let's look at pattern number 1, which is arguably the most fundamental way to open a discussion about your identity.
Let's hear it.
The pattern is, I would describe myself as, and then you fill in the blank.
I would describe myself as blank. So in practice, I could say, I would describe myself as calm and thoughtful. Or maybe in a professional setting, I would describe myself as highly organized and energetic.
Yes, exactly.
This feels like the most natural open door to begin talking about your personality, especially in a high-stakes environment, like a job interview.
It is universally applicable. But let's look at the linguistics of why it works so well. The secret power of this pattern lies in the conditional verb would.
Why don't we just say, I am calm and thoughtful?
Well, think about how that sounds. Stating I am is an absolute declaration. It leaves no room for nuance.
Right. Saying I am calm feels very definitive, almost a bit aggressive or rigid.
Exactly. But human personality is rarely absolute. By saying I would describe myself as calm, you are softening the statement. You are acknowledging that this is your own subjective perspective of yourself.
It shows you've thought about it.
Right. It shows a high degree of self-awareness. It implicitly says, if I were forced to look at myself objectively and pick a label, this is the label I would choose. It is polite, it is professional, and it sounds highly fluent.
But, I do want to push back on this a little bit, or at least acknowledge a cultural hurdle here.
Sure, what's that?
Depending on where you are from, talking about yourself directly, even with a softened would, can feel incredibly uncomfortable. In many cultures, standing up and saying, I would describe myself as intelligent and innovative, makes you sound terribly arrogant.
Oh, it really can.
It feels like you are bragging, which is a major social faux pas in a lot of places.
You have hit on a massive cultural pressure point. In many English-speaking cultures, particularly in North America, a certain level of self-promotion is expected in business contexts.
You kind of have to sell yourself.
You do. But you are absolutely right. Doing it too directly can trigger a negative reaction, sounding boastful. And that is exactly why native speakers instinctively pivot to pattern number 2 to solve that exact problem.
Oh, there's a workaround?
There is. Pattern 2 is a social lifesaver. People often say I'm, and then you fill in the blank.
Oh, that is such a clever workaround. People often say I'm blank.
It is brilliant in its subtlety. For example, instead of saying, I am a great listener, which sounds arrogant, you say, people often say I'm a great listener, or people often say I'm easy to talk to.
I love how that diffuses the tension.
Let's dissect the psychology behind this pattern. By phrasing it this way, you completely remove the focus from your own ego. It feels vastly less self-centered and much more objective because you are not the one making the claim.
You're just passing along information.
Exactly. You are simply acting as a humble reporter, relaying what the outside world has observed about you.
It is literally like providing a 5-star review from a third party.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, if I say, people often say I'm a calming presence, I am conveying a highly positive trait, but I am displacing the arrogance. I am basically saying, hey, don't look at me. I'm just telling you what my former colleagues thought.
Precisely.
I love that.
Yeah.
It is a perfectly polite, culturally appropriate way to highlight your strengths in an English-speaking environment without triggering anyone's radar for boastfulness.
It is a masterful tool for interviews or first dates. Now, speaking of sharing valuable things, this seems like a perfect moment for a quick pause.
Yes. If you are enjoying this everyday English flow and you are having those aha moments learning along with us, please take just a single second right now to like, share, and subscribe.
It really does make a huge difference.
It truly helps us keep bringing you these deep dives week after week. We want to make sure this content reaches every single English learner out there who wants to stop translating it in their head and start sounding more natural and fluent.
And, if you hit subscribe, you'll be the kind of person who never misses a nuance.
Huh? Nicely done. Which actually segues beautifully into our next phrasal structure. We've talked about how to describe ourselves directly and how to use third-party reviews. Let's look at pattern number 3, which introduces the idea of behavioral habits.
Pattern number 3 is highly versatile. I tend to be more blank.
I tend to be more blank. I realize I use this one all the time without even consciously thinking about it.
Most native speakers do.
Like, I tend to be more productive in the mornings. Let's break down the verb phrase tend to for our listeners.
The phrase tend to means to have a habit, an inclination, or a natural leaning towards a certain type of behavior. It is the verbal acknowledgement that human behavior is not 100% consistent.
Because we are machines.
Exactly. We are not robots. If you say, I am quiet, it sounds like a permanent, unchangeable law of physics. But if you say, I tend to be more quiet, you are communicating that in a majority of situations, that is your default setting.
It gives you some wiggle room.
Yes. It leaves room for the fact that maybe around your best friends, you are actually quite loud.
It adds so much essential nuance. It paints you as a complex human being. And that brings us to a brilliant advanced vocabulary word to pair with this exact pattern.
Ooh, what is it?
The word is reserved.
Ah, yes. Reserved is an absolutely essential personality adjective for C1 fluency.
Let's put it into our pattern.
Mhm.
I tend to be more reserved around new people. How do we precisely define reserved, and how is it different from just being shy?
A person who is reserved is quiet, emotionally controlled, and not overly expressive with their thoughts or feelings, especially initially.
So they hold back.
Yes, think of the word's origin like keeping a table in reserve at a restaurant, you are holding something back.
Yeah.
If you are reserved, you do not shout your opinions across the room, and you don't immediately share your deepest secrets with someone you just met.
You take your time.
You observe first, you calculate, but here's the critical analytical point. Being reserved is not driven by fear, which is what shyness is.
Right, shyness is fear of judgment.
Exactly. Being reserved is driven by a preference for boundaries and observation.
This is where the misunderstanding happens so often. People look at a reserved person at a party, someone who is sitting quietly, politely listening, not showing huge explosive facial expressions, and they immediately judge that person as being cold, aloof, or unfriendly.
It is a chronic misjudgment, especially in highly expressive cultures. Because the reserved person is not immediately broadcasting warm, loud emotions, people incorrectly assume the warmth doesn't exist.
They just think they're snobs.
They do. They think, oh, they are just sitting there staring at us. They must think they are better than everyone else, or they just don't like us.
When in reality, reserved people are often incredibly deeply caring, fiercely loyal, and highly observant. They just choose to express their warmth more slowly and carefully, doling it out only once they feel entirely comfortable and trust the people around them.
That's spot on.
Again, we see how misunderstanding the nuance of a word leads directly to misunderstanding the human being.
It does. And this phenomenon, how we choose to display our inner feelings to the outside world, opens up a much larger, fascinating psychological topic. The mechanics of emotional expressiveness.
Oh, this is a huge topic.
It is. Why do some people wear their hearts on their sleeves, crying at a commercial and laughing uproariously, while others are incredibly reserved, maintaining a stoic poker face no matter what is happening? What dictates that difference?
That is the million-dollar question. I've met families where one sibling is a theatrical performer of emotion and the other is a stone wall. So where does this expressiveness come from?
Well, it is widely believed by sociologists that a person's baseline emotional style depends heavily on an intersection of three main factors: broader cultural norms, childhood upbringing, and specific life experiences.
Let's unpack those, starting with culture, because I find cross-cultural communication endlessly fascinating.
The cultural impact cannot be overstated. Different societies have entirely different baseline expectations for what constitutes normal emotional expression.
Like high versus low arousal.
Exactly. We generally categorize these into high arousal and low arousal cultures. In many Mediterranean or Latin American cultures, for instance, speaking loudly, using expansive hand gestures, interrupting with enthusiasm, and openly expressing intense joy or deep frustration is considered not just normal, but a sign of honesty and engagement.
So if you aren't doing that, you seem suspicious.
Right. If you are quiet in those settings, they think you are hiding something.
Right. But if you take that exact same honest behavior and drop it into a boardroom in Tokyo or even in certain parts of Scandinavia, it lands completely differently.
Oh, completely. In those cultures, that loud, expansive behavior would likely be viewed as highly immature, disruptive, or even aggressive.
Wow, aggressive.
Yes. In those societies, being reserved, maintaining harmony, and keeping your emotions strictly modulated is highly valued as a sign of deep respect and self-control.
That makes total sense. So a massive part of fluency in English, especially if you are traveling or working internationally, is realizing that if you move to a new cultural context, Your perfectly normal, healthy personality might suddenly be viewed through a completely different, perhaps negative lens.
You absolutely have to learn to read the room.
Okay, but what about the second factor? Childhood upbringing.
Our families serve as our very first school for emotional management. We absorb the rules of expression before we can even speak.
Like sponges.
Exactly. If you grew up in a household where everyone yelled passionately when they were angry and hugged fiercely when they were happy, you likely internalized that explosive expression is the natural way to process feelings. You tend to be more expressive.
Makes sense.
Conversely, if you grew up in a household where conflict was hidden, where voices were never raised and emotions were kept intensely private, you probably learned to be highly reserved. You biologically adapt to survive and fit into your early environment.
Which perfectly transitions us into our next major vocabulary focus. And I want everyone listening to pay close attention, because this is a true C1 level psychological phrase that has entered mainstream conversation.
Oh, this is a crucial one.
You hear this everywhere in leadership seminars, therapy podcasts, and relationship advice. The phrase is emotionally mature. What does it actually mean to be emotionally mature? Is it just never getting angry?
That is a brilliant question because many people think emotional maturity means suppressing your feelings or becoming a robot.
Right, like just bottling it all up.
But it does not. An emotionally mature person feels the exact same intense spectrum of emotions as anyone else: rage, jealousy, joy, terror.
So they still feel it all.
Yes, but the defining characteristic is how they handle those emotions. They process them in a calm, healthy way, communicating respectfully rather than reacting impulsively.
Let's clarify this with a contrast. Give me an example of the immature reaction versus the mature reaction to the exact same stimulus.
Okay, imagine a scenario at work where a colleague takes credit for a project you spent 3 weeks building.
Oh, I would be furious.
Rightly so. Now, an emotionally immature person feels the surge of anger, and the emotion immediately hijacks their brain. They slam their laptop shut, they yell at the colleague in the middle of the office, or they send a highly aggressive, insulting email to the whole team.
They let the emotion completely control their behavior.
A total meltdown.
Yes, a total meltdown. So what's the mature response?
Now, the emotionally mature person in that exact same scenario feels the exact same white-hot anger. But, and this is the key, they utilize what a famous psychiatrist once called the space between stimulus and response.
The space between.
Yes, they feel the anger, they take a deep breath, they physically calm their nervous system, they process why they are angry, and then they address the issue constructively.
So they don't just ignore it.
No, they don't ignore it at all. They might calmly pull the colleague into a private meeting and say, "I am feeling extremely frustrated right now because you presented my data as your own. We need to clarify roles moving forward."
That is a staggering difference. The raw emotion is identical, but the external reaction is fundamentally different. The immature person reacts blindly. The mature person acts with intention.
Precisely. Emotional maturity is the ability to maintain your character and your respect for others, even when you are flooded with difficult feelings.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here, though, and push back a little.
Go for it.
In a lot of modern corporate cultures, or even in the modern dating world, we are constantly told that confidence is key.
Right. Fake it till you make it.
Exactly. People seem to admire the loudest, most fiercely confident person in the room. The person who walks in, takes charge, dominates the conversation, and never shows a sliver of doubt. Doesn't pure confidence win out over quiet emotional maturity?
It is an incredibly common belief. And it is true that pure aggressive confidence can win in the short term. It can get you the job interview or win you the first date. But if we connect this to the bigger picture of long-term human interaction, true emotional maturity is vastly more powerful and sustainable than external confidence.
Why is that?
Because external confidence is very frequently an illusion. It is a mask. You can easily have someone who appears incredibly confident on the outside. They speak loudly, they give commands, they have perfect posture.
They look the part.
They do. But internally, they might be deeply fragile. And the moment things go truly wrong, a project fails, a crisis hits, someone criticizes them, that confident person shatters.
Oh, because they don't have the foundation.
Exactly. Because they lack emotional maturity, they might become aggressively defensive, throw their team under the bus, or completely shut down.
I have seen that happen. The bravado completely collapses under pressure.
Exactly. On the other hand, an emotionally mature person might not be the loudest voice in the room. They might even fall on the reserve side of the spectrum. But when the crisis hits, they don't panic.
They anchor the team.
Yes, they remain grounded, they listen to differing opinions, they absorb the stress, and they navigate the problem without attacking anyone. Over a timeline of years, people learn to trust emotional maturity infinitely more than they trust loud, flashy confidence.
That is a phenomenal distinction. Confidence dictates how you present yourself when things are good. Emotional maturity dictates how you handle reality when things are bad.
That is a beautiful way to summarize it.
And a massive part of handling reality involves interacting with other people's pain, which brings us to another foundational C1 vocabulary word, empathy, or its adjective form, empathetic.
Empathy is arguably the core pillar of emotional maturity. It is the cognitive and emotional ability to understand and actually share the feelings of another person.
It's not just sympathy.
No, it is
Ah.
not just feeling sorry for them. It is actively stepping into their psychological shoes.
So an example sentence to solidify this would be, empathetic people often make others feel deeply comfortable and understood because they listen without trying to fix everything immediately.
That fixing part is key.
Right, if I am having a catastrophic day, empathetic friend doesn't just pat me on the back and say, oh, cheer up, it could be worse. That is actually dismissive.
Very dismissive.
An empathetic friend sits down, looks me in the eye, and says, that sounds incredibly overwhelming. I can see why you were so stressed out. They actually bear the weight of the emotion with me.
That is true empathy.
Yeah.
And a concept that is intrinsically linked to empathy is being open-minded.
Open-minded. We hear this all the time, but let's define it rigorously.
To be truly open-minded means you possess the willingness to listen to different ideas, radically opposing perspectives, and new information without becoming immediately defensive or angry.
So it's about humility, in a way.
Yes. An open-minded person operates on the assumption that they do not know everything and that their current beliefs could be wrong.
I have to confess, I tend to be incredibly open-minded when I am relaxed on a Sunday afternoon reading a book. But I notice that when I am stressed at work or when I feel threatened, my open-mindedness completely vanishes. I become rigidly defensive.
That is a very human biological response. Stress heavily limits our cognitive flexibility.
Which actually provides a beautiful transition into our next set of sentence patterns. We have discussed how to describe our internal emotions and maturity. But how do we effectively express what we need from our external environment to prevent that stress?
Right. How do we protect ourselves?
Yes. How do we advocate for ourselves? Let's dive into patterns 4, 5, and 6.
Let's start with pattern number 4, which is a wonderful flowing structure for self-definition.
I'm the kind of person who blank.
I'm the kind of person who blank. This is so musical. For example, I'm the kind of person who enjoys deep philosophical conversations over small talk. Or I'm the kind of person who needs to review the agenda before a meeting.
It's unnatural.
It gives you immense freedom to describe a specific habit or preference without sounding demanding. It really does. It frames your behavior as a consistent part of your identity rather than a sudden whim. And that leads directly into pattern number 5, which is perhaps the most diplomatically powerful sentence you can use for setting boundaries and expectations.
Ooh, the diplomatic boundary setter. Let's hear it.
It is. I usually feel more comfortable on blank.
I usually feel more comfortable when... Let me try one. I usually feel more comfortable when conversations are calm and relaxed rather than loud debates.
That is a perfect use case.
I absolutely love this pattern because it is a masterclass in polite self-advocacy. You are not aggressively demanding that people change their behavior. You aren't saying, stop arguing, you are stressing me out.
Which would just cause a fight.
Right. You are simply stating the optimal conditions for your own well-being. I usually feel more comfortable when I know the plan a few days in advance.
It is completely non-confrontational. You are giving the other person an instruction manual on how to best interact with you. It prevents friction before it ever has a chance to spark.
That's a great way to put it, an instruction manual.
Now, let's look at pattern number 6, which is a brilliant conversational pivot. This pattern shifts the spotlight away from you and onto your analysis of the world around you. One thing I've noticed about people is blank.
One thing I've noticed about people is, for example, one thing I've noticed about people is that quiet individuals are often the most observant.
That is an excellent observation.
This is a fantastic conversational tool because talking entirely about yourself for 10 minutes can feel narcissistic. This pattern allows you to sound analytical, observant, and philosophical. You are actively inviting the other person to engage in a discussion about human nature with you.
It opens the door for shared analysis. And notice the vocabulary word you slipped into your example just now, describing quiet individuals. Let's focus on the word thoughtful.
Yes, thoughtful. This is a beautiful adjective. It goes far beyond just thinking.
It does.
It means being deeply considerate, attentive, and emotionally aware of the needs of others. A thoughtful person is the one who remembers your obscure allergy when booking a restaurant, or who notices you are struggling to carry a box and silently opens the door for you.
Their mind is directed outward.
Exactly. Their mind is full of thought directed outward toward others.
It is a wonderful trait. But, psychological traits rarely exist without a shadow side. There is a fascinating, much darker flip side to the concept of having a busy, thinking mind. And that is the modern epidemic known as overthinking.
Oh, overthinking. The absolute thief of joy.
It truly can be paralyzing. Some personalities naturally possess a high capacity to analyze situations deeply, which, as we said, makes them thoughtful. But when that analytical engine loses its brakes and goes too far, they begin relentlessly replaying and dissecting past interactions or worrying about future ones.
I know the anatomy of an overthinking spiral intimately.
We all do, unfortunately.
You are lying in bed at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, and your brain decides to replay a 5-second interaction you had 3 days ago in the hallway.
The dreaded 3 a.m. reel.
Right. Why did I laugh at that joke? Was my laugh too loud? Did my boss look annoyed? Do they think I am unprofessional?
You just play the tape backward and forward, examining every pixel, creating disasters that don't exist.
That is textbook overthinking. It is exhausting because your brain is trying to solve a problem that has already passed, and it is crucial to connect this internal chaos to how people are perceived externally. Let me share an example sentence that highlights this disconnect perfectly.
Please do.
Social anxiety can cause a person to overthink simple conversations, making them appear distant when they are actually just intensely nervous.
That is such a vital insight for empathy. You might look at a colleague in a meeting. They seem cold, distant, staring off into space, barely speaking.
You think they are ignoring you? Right, you might judge them as arrogant or disengaged. But internally, beneath the surface, they are experiencing an agonizing storm of overthinking triggered by social anxiety.
Their brain is working overtime.
Their brain is working at 110% capacity, analyzing every micro-expression in the room, wondering if they belong there, to the point that they literally freeze up. The external appearance of coldness is completely betraying the internal reality of panic.
It is a protective freeze response, which raises an incredibly important psychological question about how we manage that internal reality. When the overthinking becomes deafening, or when the environment becomes impossibly overstimulating, what is the healthy mechanism to cope?
We run away to a cabin in the woods.
Well, sometimes.
Well, maybe not literally, but we actively seek out peace and separation, which transitions us perfectly into discussing solitude, boundaries, and genuine connections. Let's really dissect the concept of needing to be entirely physically away from other people.
This is a critical area for language learners because there is a massive, incredibly important distinction between two English words that are often mistakenly used interchangeably: solitude and loneliness.
Oh, these are very different.
Psychologically and emotionally, these are not synonyms. They are virtually opposites.
Let's draw a hard line between them. Define the difference for us.
Okay. Solitude is a positive, intentional, and chosen state of being alone. It is a space for peaceful, healthy mental recovery and self-reflection.
It's a choice.
Exactly. It is when you decide to lock the door and be alone because you genuinely enjoy your own company. You need to process your thoughts and you need to recharge mentally.
And loneliness.
Loneliness, on the other hand, is an emotionally painful, involuntary state of isolation. It is the acute feeling of lacking connection. The profound difference is that you can experience deep loneliness while standing in a crowded room surrounded by friends if you feel fundamentally disconnected or misunderstood by them.
There is a famous quote by a theologian that sums this up beautifully. He essentially said that language created the word loneliness to express the deep pain of being alone, but it created the word solitude to express the absolute glory of being alone.
That is a breathtaking way to summarize it. Solitude is the joy of the self. Loneliness is the pain of the void.
So powerful.
Therefore, a healthy introvert actively seeks out solitude as a medicine to prevent loneliness and emotional burnout. And the mechanism we use to protect that sacred solitude brings us to the modern psychological concept of emotional boundaries.
We hear about boundaries constantly now. You need to set boundaries. But what does that actually look like in practice?
Emotional boundaries are the deliberate, communicated practices of protecting your mental well-being and emotional reserves. It is the self-awareness of knowing your psychological limits and the courage to enforce them politely.
Give us an example.
For example, it is taking 30 minutes of personal space in your car after a highly stressful day at the office before walking into your house and dealing with your family.
Oh, the driveway decompression. I know it well.
Yes. Or it is the ability to look at a good friend and say, I care about you deeply and I want to support you, but I simply cannot listen to you vent about your relationship problems tonight because I am emotionally drained and I have nothing left to give.
Wow. That takes an immense amount of courage, but it sounds exactly like something a highly emotionally mature person would say.
Yeah.
It is honest, and it protects the friendship from building silent resentment.
Precisely. Setting and maintaining boundaries is a core architectural pillar of emotional maturity. Now, looking at all these complex behaviors, our need for solitude, our boundary setting, our empathy, where do they come from?
Right, how do we get this way?
This introduces a fantastic, sophisticated phrasal structure shaped by.
Shaped by. This is a passive grammatical structure, and I absolutely love the imagery it evokes.
Yes. We frequently say, people's personalities are shaped by life experiences, trauma, and success over time.
Let's do a quick linguistic analysis of that. Why is the passive voice so effective and evocative here? Why wouldn't a native speaker just use the active voice and say, life experiences shape people's personalities?
Using the passive structure, shaped by, shifts the philosophical emphasis onto the person as a recipient of forces, rather than focusing on the events themselves.
It makes us the subject.
Right. It highlights a beautiful, slightly humbling reality. We are the clay, and the chaotic world is the sculptor's hands. We don't always get to choose what happens to us, the tragedies, the windfalls, the betrayals, but those external events relentlessly mold our internal landscape.
So a tough childhood.
A deeply chaotic, unstable childhood might shape someone to be intensely reserved and hypervigilant, while early, supportive successes might shape someone else to be naturally outgoing and optimistic.
We are constantly being molded over time. The pressure of life just chips away at us. And when you finally strip away all that external shaping, all the defensive boundaries and all the polite masks, you find out if a person at their core is actually genuine.
Genuine is a top-tier, gold standard vocabulary word. If you describe someone in English as being genuine, you are giving them one of the highest possible compliments.
Really? The highest?
Absolutely. It means they are fundamentally honest, authentic, and emotionally real. They are exactly who they appear to be. They do not alter their personality, their opinions, or their voice just to impress the people in the room.
The example sentence we have encapsulates this perfectly. Many people value genuine individuals vastly more than those with fake charisma.
Fake charisma is the worst.
And we all know what fake charisma feels like. It is exhausting. It is the politician's handshake, the salesperson's overly bright smile, the networking guru who is looking over your shoulder to see if someone more important is in the room.
You can just sense it.
But a genuine person, even if they are a bit socially awkward or a bit blunt, is incredibly refreshing because you never have to guess what their agenda is.
And because genuine people are so anchored in reality, they naturally create environments around them that are emotionally safe.
Emotionally safe. That is a fascinating phrase. You aren't going to find that in a standard A2 textbook, but native speakers use it heavily, especially in therapy, coaching, or deep relationship contexts. What creates emotional safety?
Emotional safety is the atmosphere created when a person makes you feel completely accepted as you are, without the threat of immediate, harsh judgment or ridicule.
So you can let your guard down.
Exactly. If you are with someone who is emotionally safe, you don't have to engage in overthinking. You don't have to carefully filter every sentence before you speak. You can make a mistake, admit a fear, or be a little silly, knowing your fundamental worth to that person isn't at risk.
You can drop the armor. Now, speaking of dropping armor and making mistakes, when English learners are out in the real world trying to bravely use all these advanced, nuanced words, genuine, empathetic, overstimulating it, is incredibly easy to stumble into a few technical errors.
It is entirely natural. Learning a language is an exercise in vulnerability.
It is. And there is frankly nothing more frustrating than having a profound, complex thought in your head, but the English comes out just slightly garbled, and the entire nuance is lost on the listener.
It's the worst feeling.
So let's elevate our fluency right now. Let's move into polishing our C1 skills by dissecting the common mistakes English learners make when discussing personality. What are the major traps we fall into?
The first major trap, mistake number one, is noun versus adjective confusion, specifically with words that sound very similar to their counterparts in Romance languages.
Oh, false friends, basically.
Sort of. A classic frequent example is the word sympathy. A learner aiming for high fluency might passionately say, I am very sympathy toward his situation.
Ouch. Yes, I hear that one quite a bit. I am very sympathy.
It is completely understandable why this misfire happens, especially if a learner's native tongue uses a cognate of sympathy to mean nice. However, grammatically in English, sympathy is the noun, it is the object.
So what's the fix?
The correct adjective form, the word that describes the state of being, is sympathetic. So the correct fluent way to express that feeling is, I am very sympathetic.
Let's explain the difference clearly in simple functional language for our listeners. Sympathy is the thing that you possess. Sympathetic is the kind of person you are.
Exactly.
So I can correctly say, I have deep sympathy for you, using it as a noun. Or I can describe my personality by saying, I have a very sympathetic person. You just have to ensure you are reaching for the adjective when you're describing identity.
Exactly. It is a small grammatical hinge that swings a very large door in terms of sounding native. Now, mistake number 2 is born from direct translation errors.
Direct translation, that's always dangerous.
It is. This occurs when a learner takes a highly common idiom or phrasing from their mother tongue and translates it word for word into English, hoping the cultural context translates with it. A prime example is the phrase, he has a strong character.
Now, wait a second. He has a strong character. I completely understand what someone means when they say that. Why is it considered a mistake in modern English?
You are right that it is perfectly understandable, which is precisely why learners continue to use it. It doesn't halt communication. However, it is just not the natural, idiomatic way a native speaker would express that psychological concept today.
So what should they say?
In modern English, if someone is forceful, opinionated, or dominant, we would much more naturally say, he has a strong personality. If we mean they are resilient and brave, we would say, he is mentally strong.
So what does strong character sound like to a native ear? Does it sound weird?
Saying someone has a strong character carries a heavy, almost antiquated moral weight. It sounds like you were describing a righteous knight in a 19th century novel, or making a profound moral judgment rather than simply describing a real person's daily psychological behavior.
Oh, I see.
Personality is the modern psychological term. Character is a moral or literary term.
That is such a subtle yet incredibly important C1 polish. If you were talking about workplace dynamics, don't say strong character, say strong personality. Okay, lay mistake number 3 on us.
Mistake number 3 is arguably the most damaging to actual connection, being too vague.
Vague language.
Yes. This is the habit of retreating to words that are so broad, so diluted, that they carry absolutely no specific meaning or imagery. For example, describing a colleague by simply saying, she is good.
She is good. I mean, I hear that, my brain just asks a dozen questions. What does that even mean in this context?
Exactly. What does it mean?
Is she morally good? Is she highly skilled at tennis? Does she behave well at meetings?
It is a linguistic placeholder. It hides the richness of what you are actually observing. To sound C1 fluent, specific, sharp details are your absolute best friend.
So ditch the word good.
Yes. Instead of the lazy, wrong sentence, she is good, the correct approach is to deploy the advanced vocabulary we have been dissecting today. She is highly thoughtful, incredibly reliable, and emotionally mature.
That paints an immediate, high-definition picture in my mind. When you say someone is thoughtful and emotionally mature, I instantly know exactly how that person will act when a project fails, how they will treat me when I am stressed, and what kind of leader they are.
Vague language is the absolute enemy of human connection.
So, to ensure our listeners are armed with enough specific words to never be vague again, let's dive into our final vocabulary sprint. We are going to unpack a rapid-fire list of master-level personality adjectives and one utterly crucial phrasal verb.
Let's kick this off with the word reliable.
Reliable. This is the cornerstone of trust. It means a person can be consistently depended upon. If a reliable person tells you they will meet you at the airport at 5 a.m., they are idling at the curb at 4:55 a.m.
They never leave you hanging.
Never. The example sentence we have is, he is very reliable and always keeps his promises. If you want a good employee, a good business partner, or a good spouse, you fundamentally want them to be reliable.
Absolutely. Reliability is the currency of trust. Now, the next word is sociologically fascinating because of its intense dual nature. Stubborn.
Oh, stubborn. Usually we think of this in a purely negative light, like a toddler refusing to eat vegetables or a donkey that just plants its feet and won't move.
Yes, the core definition means aggressively resisting changing your opinions, your ideas, or your behaviors, regardless of logic. But what's fascinating here is the cultural and psychological nuance.
Nuance. With stubbornness.
Yes, stubbornness is not universally bad. It can actually be highly positive or deeply negative entirely, depending on the context and the outcome.
Explain how being stubborn can be a positive trait. I need to know how to defend myself next time I'm accused of it.
Well, on the positive side, a stubborn person is often incredibly determined. If they have a monumental goal, say, starting a business or finishing a grueling degree, they will stubbornly refuse to quit, even when everyone else tells them it is impossible.
Oh, so they persevere.
Yes, in that context, we rebrand their stubbornness as grit, tenacity, or resolve. They are the innovators who change the world because they refuse to yield.
I see. And the negative side, I'm guessing it's when they refuse to yield to reason.
On the negative side, that exact same refusal to yield becomes toxic in interpersonal relationships. A stubbornly uncooperative friend or partner might struggle immensely to compromise.
Right.
If they believe they are right in a domestic argument, they will stubbornly refuse to apologize, even if holding on to their pride is actively destroying the relationship.
It is a profound, double-edged sword. A stubbornly determined entrepreneur who succeeds versus a stubbornly unyielding partner who ends up alone.
I love that we can use one word to capture both extremes. Okay, moving on. Our next master level word is considerate.
Considerate is a beautiful word closely related to our earlier word, thoughtful. It implies a person who is actively, consistently thinking of others' feelings, comfort, and convenience.
The example sentence is, she's very considerate and instantly notices when someone feels uncomfortable in a group. That's a great social skill.
A considerate person is that amazing individual at a chaotic dinner party who realizes that the quiet guest at the end of the table hasn't spoken in 15 minutes and gently, politely asks them a question about their expertise to weave them back into the conversation.
They make sure everyone is okay.
They are constantly scanning the social environment to make sure everyone is safe and included.
They are the healers of a social dynamic, and they are the exact polar opposite of our next and final adjective, which is judgmental.
Judgmental. That is a heavy word. Nobody on earth wants to be labeled as judgmental.
No, because it carries a deeply negative connotation. Being judgmental means criticizing others far too quickly, usually without bothering to understand their complex situation, and thereby creating immense social tension.
Like jumping to conclusions.
Exactly. A judgmental person looks at someone else's mistake, say, a colleague missing a deadline, and immediately attributes it to a fundamental flaw in their personality, like laziness, rather than considering the external circumstances, like perhaps they are dealing with a sick child at home.
It is the ultimate failure of empathy. It is the opposite of being open-minded. And frankly, if you are highly judgmental, people are going to realize you are not emotionally safe, and they're not going to want to spend any time around you.
No, they will avoid you.
Which leads us elegantly into our final, absolutely crucial phrasal verb of the day, get along with.
Get along with. If you remember nothing else from this vocabulary list, memorize this phrase. It means having a comfortable, harmonious, positive relationship with someone.
Let's give an example sentence. I usually get along with people who are open-minded, considerate, and respectful. I cannot possibly emphasize enough how constantly native speakers rely on this phrase.
It is everywhere in daily speech.
In casual conversation, we almost never say, I have a positive relationship with my brother. That sounds like a legal document.
Very stiff.
We simply say, I get along with my brother really well. Or, in a negative context, I don't really get along with my new manager. We clash a lot. It is the ultimate social glue phrase in English.
It is the heartbeat of everyday English flow. It connects people.
Well, looking at the time, we have covered an absolutely incredible amount of psychological and linguistic ground today. We promised you numbers at the beginning, and we delivered a full toolkit.
We covered a lot of ground.
We walked through 6 highly natural sentence patterns, like the diplomatic I would describe myself as, and the self-advocating I usually feel more comfortable when.
Essential patterns.
We deeply unpacked 8 advanced personality words, exploring the nuances of overstimulating, the dual nature of being stubborn, what it means to be emotionally mature, and the rare beauty of someone who is truly genuine.
The C1 vocabulary upgrade.
And we fixed 2 common stubborn mistakes. Remember, you are not sympathy, you are sympathetic. And for the love of language, avoid vague words.
Yes, please drop. She is good.
If you have internalized these concepts, You now possess a highly powerful C1 level toolkit to discuss human personality, psychology, and relationships in English at an incredibly advanced, nuanced level.
But before we finish our time together, I want to leave you with a final, slightly philosophical thought to mull over on your own. It builds on everything we've explored today about how we are shaped.
Okay, let's hear the deep thought.
Here is the question. Do you think our core personality traits, our introversion, our stubbornness, our empathy, are fixed from birth, hardwired into our DNA? Or does gaining intense self-awareness, like learning this very vocabulary to describe yourself, actually allow you to completely rewrite who you are as you age?
Oh, wow. Nature versus nurture, but with vocabulary.
Exactly. Are you fundamentally the exact same person you were 10 years ago, just equipped with a better vocabulary to explain it? Or has the awareness and the language actually changed your underlying personality?
That is a remarkably deep, provocative question.
I-
I feel like I've evolved, but maybe I have just learned how to manage my same old neuroses better. I really don't know. It is definitely something for everyone listening to reflect on.
It is the ultimate unsolvable puzzle of human nature.
And now, the moment you have been waiting for. As promised at the very beginning of the deep dive, I excitedly present the bonus insight, the absolute secret of first impressions.
This is a vital piece of communication psychology that ties everything together.
Throughout all the psychological literature, one astonishing fact keeps appearing. Our first impressions of a person's personality are almost always completely inaccurate.
Almost always wrong.
We put so much societal pressure on the first impression, but humans are terrible at it. Because as we learn today, the quiet person who seems cold and arrogant initially might actually just be highly reserved, or they might be paralyzed by an overthinking spiral.
Right.
And the highly confident, loud person who seems incredibly powerful and intimidating at first glance might internally be deeply insecure and totally lack emotional maturity.
The profound bonus learning here is that patience is the ultimate, most effective communication tool you possess. We judge each other far too quickly. Time is quite literally the only metric that reveals a person's true, genuine personality.
You just have to wait.
You absolutely cannot determine someone's emotional maturity from a flawless 5-minute conversation at a cocktail party. You have to wait and observe how they handle sudden stress, how they navigate conflict when they don't get what they want, and how consistently they show empathy over a timeline of months or years.
Patience is the ultimate tool. Let time do the talking. I love that. So listeners, let's put your newly upgraded knowledge to the test right now. We learned the crucial phrasal verb get along with today.
Yes, we did.
In the comments below, I want you to answer this direct question. What kind of personality do you easily get along with? Try to use some of the advanced, nuanced vocabulary we explored today. Do you naturally get along with reserved people because they are calm? Do you get along with highly genuine, open-minded people? Let us know in the comments.
We truly look forward to reading your specific C1 level answers.
If you loved this deep dive and you felt your English flow improving, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps the show more than you know. And finally, to prove you made it to the very end of this intensive psychological C1 English masterclass, write the exact phrase, "I stay committed," in the comment box below.
Yes, right. I stay committed.
We actively look for that phrase to see who our most dedicated, relentless learners are. Remember where we started today, staring at a wall, peering into the murky waters of our own minds, trying to find the words to explain who we are. Hopefully, with these new patterns and adjectives, those waters are a little clearer now. Until next time, keep exploring, keep communicating, and keep growing.